Former President Donald Trump's Georgia case is now in shambles, and DA Fani Willis is pissed off about it. So it's very clear that this election interference case got derailed because Willis and her former lead prosecutor Nathan Wade decided to lie about their romantic relationship. That and a lot of possible corruption on their end. This brought out all sorts of questions that led to many different odors. Odors of corruption being one of the key problems for the district attorney's office. Now, besides that, the judge in this case is also having a tough time with Fani Willis because she keeps disobeying his orders. Now, we know that Judge Scott McAfee has repeatedly told Willis to stop using the race card, a practice that she seems to have incorporated into her campaign, which reminds me, both of them are up for re-election this year. Many political analysts say that this Donald Trump case, it could make or break either of them due to their high-profile nature. But it might be looking a little bit worse for DA Fani Willis, as she's now being accused of doing the exact same thing that they're blaming on Donald Trump. Republican Representative Jim Jordan went as far as to say that these cases are merely here to influence the 2024 presidential election, with Fani Willis, Jack Smith, Letitia James, and Alvin Bragg all conspiring to hinder Donald Trump's run for the White House.
And Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and Fulton County DA Fani Willis have exchanged a lot of sharp letters over the past few months. Jordan is the chair of the House committee investigating Willis's prosecution of Donald Trump. Today, he flat out accused her of being part of a conspiracy to affect the upcoming presidential election.
Her case is the one that's politically motivated, and the American people can see it.
That's Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan talking about his investigation into Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's prosecution of former President Donald Trump and others. Trump is charged with conspiracy, racketeering, and election interference. Jordan and Willis have exchanged a series of sharp letters back and forth, Jordan demanding Willis turn over documents and Willis accusing him of obstructing a Georgia criminal proceeding. Tuesday, Jordan took his fight one step further, accusing Willis of conspiring with federal prosecutor Jack Smith and Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg to help Trump lose the 2024 election.
The real conspiracy, the real politics, is between Bragg, Smith, and Willis, all working together to impact the 2024 presidential race. And I think Americans have common sense. I think they can see it for what it is. That's what's going on here.
Jordan offered no proof of any conspiracy. We showed the interview to Willis in her office. Afterwards, she declined an on-camera interview. But about Jordan's accusations, she did say on the record, quote, "This ain't even worth my time." And as far as his committee issuing subpoenas to both Willis and former Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, Jordan says anything is possible.
Everything's on the table. We haven't made those decisions yet, but we don't take any option off the table.
Now, former President Donald Trump has pretty much said the exact same thing, blaming these prosecutors and judges as to why he's been limited with his presidential campaign. And speaking of campaigns, both DA Fani Willis and Judge Scott McAfee, they've been on that trail for some time now. McAfee on his end will be in a nonpartisan race, and Fani Willis will be going up against fellow Democrat Christian Y. Smith. The attorney says that there's a lot to worry about with him joining this race against Willis. Some conclude that this could put Donald Trump's case in danger. Wise Smith himself has admittedly said that he would go about things differently if ever he wins the primary, saying, quote, "I think the case is in grave jeopardy right now. I'm not dropping it if it's there when I get there, but we are going to look at the best way to go forward with it. This means that Willis is facing challenges from multiple different fronts, not to mention the possibility that she's disqualified from Donald Trump's election interference case. However, that decision still lies with the Court of Appeals." And much like the former president, President Biden is also waiting on some much needed good news. The problem is he didn't get it with the latest CPI numbers. It shows that CPI increased by 0.3% from March. Now, on a 12-month basis, the CPI increased by a whopping 3.4%. This means that Bidenomics is costing us all even more money whenever we go out to buy our needs.
More than a third of Americans cite the economy and inflation as the most important issue facing the country. That's according to a new NBC News poll. And take a look at this. Since January, inflation's been ticking up, hitting 3.5% in March. Consumers and Wall Street now bracing for this morning's release of the latest inflation numbers. So let's bring in Christine Romans, our senior business correspondent. So we've talked about this a fair amount, Christine, the reality versus the perception. Right. Here we have, wages seem to be keeping up with inflation. People are still spending. Unemployment's still relatively low, but folks still say they don't feel good about the economy. How do you explain the chasm?
It's a huge disconnect. I mean, sentiment is really terrible about the economy, but the top line numbers show an economy that is frankly booming, and people are spending. They're spending. We're talking about a record travel season for the summer, right? We're looking at concerts and all these venues that are ready for record people coming in and spending a lot of money. We can see credit cards. People are still spending money. We have a record credit card debt now, and about almost half of people are carrying a balance from one month to the other. And that's why these high interest rates really matter. At 20% interest rates, and they're not likely to go down in the very near term, that's a really dangerous thing for your personal finances.
Yet we're being told that we can afford this kind of lifestyle, that the economy has never been better, and that Trump left our economy in shambles and he's merely here piecing it back together. That is, if you listen to Joe Biden. Do you agree with Biden on that one? And what's really surprising is that we're around halfway through the year and we have yet to see a pivot from the Federal Reserve. Now, if you guys remember, it was around late last year when we were told by Jerome Powell that it's likely that we would see a rate cut within the first quarter of this year. Experts now believe that this is not happening anytime soon with inflation as hot as it still is. One of the other factors here is the energy index. It went up by 1.1% for a month and around 2.6% annually. And since we're already talking about energy, did you guys hear about what Democrats are doing in California? We're all being told that gas prices could spike by 50 cents under Governor Gavin Newsom. You're probably thinking that the price of oil just went up, but that's not the case. This is all about the green agenda and the state's very aggressive stance towards reducing their emissions.
According to AAA, the national average for a gallon of regular gas today is $3.84. In California, it's $5.82, and that's more than 50 cents more than the average here a month ago. On Friday, the state's director of the new Division of Petroleum Market Oversight released his own list of reasons why prices are so high, including blaming a single isolated trade on California's spot market, the internal market where gas is sold in bulk. In a letter to Governor Gavin Newsom, the director said the transaction caused the price per gallon to rise by nearly 50 cents. That one trade likely cost Californians millions of dollars at the pump, forcing people to adjust their budgets.
I put aside at least $150 for gas, and I can't always fill it up, so it's like 20 here, 20 there sometimes.
Rethink what they'll do on their lunch break.
Maybe just have a coffee break, and it's cheaper than I go home.
And some are even considering leaving California.
Probably one of the most expensive places to live in the world now, and with gas prices and everything else always costing a lot of money, it's just starting to be taxing on us.
So I guess it wasn't bad enough that they hold the record for the most expensive gas in our country right now, because it sure looks like they don't want to give up that position to some other state. If this pushes through, it could make their average price of gas almost double compared to that of the rest of the nation. Senator Janet Nguyen spoke out about this change and called it as a secret tax increase. She says that the insane amount of tax in the state from food to gas is driving people out of California. Now, on that note, let's go ahead and close things up with how Biden's administration has been keeping our economy afloat, or at least that's what they try to tell themselves. And it's no secret that President Joe Biden has built his campaign off of the middle class, saying that American workers need relief and that he wants to build from the middle out and from the bottom up, which really doesn't make sense with what General Motors just did. It's recently come out that GM laid off 145 workers. This was after they were told of a promised long career. GM and the union decided not to tell these people about this decision, and they instead found out over social media. Now, what's really sad is that the workers are saying that they left jobs for this opportunity. And to make matters even worse, the union will be taking the dues the employees paid and use them to mail other members to vote for Biden at the end of the year. Doesn't this just make you sick? So President Joe Biden insists that he works for the working American, but in the same light, he allows something like this to happen. This has led many to question why unions even exist in the first place. But what are your thoughts on this? And will this positively affect President Biden in the polls come November? Now, as always, you guys are free to your own opinions. I'm just here to provide you guys with facts. Before I go, I want to thank you all for hitting the like button. Thank you for sharing these videos and subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one.